What's up, everybody? How you doing today? Hope y'all are doing well. It's a Wednesday here, and once again, it is time for us to commence with the Ramblin'. That's right, Renegades Ramble, episode number 64 is here, and we are live.
It's cold and rainy again.
Not as cold as
I missed
been.
My snow weather. This has been a really mild winter.
It has been. It's been a fairly mild. At least for us here in the Appalachian Mountains.
I prefer snow over this ugly ass rain that just keeps falling.
Well, yeah, because
it snowed the other day, but
snow is white, beautiful, pristine, and all clean looking. And instead, you look outside and it's pretty much muddy everywhere.
This is like the fucking.
If it was snowing, we probably wouldn't be able to get down here.
Very true. This is very true. So. Yeah, I'd rather deal with the rain, but I prefer the aesthetic look.
Instead, it just looks like you walk out and it's Death Stranding outside. So.
Yeah, fair enough.
But,
and so overall, this this has been a rather testing week for me. I've ever since you. Hey, there we go. There's a donation. That's the first one of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The thing is, since you last saw me, I'll start off with the heaviest stuff first. As most of you know, if you've been on our YouTube channel and you've seen our community tab, the family dog Bella, who has been with us for a very, very long time, we had to unfortunately put her to sleep because of her cancer spreading and everything. And it was honestly, I've been there for the death of all three of our family dogs from the very beginning. And I got to be honest, this one hit the hardest because she'd been with us the longest, and she'd always been like she'd always. I got to thinking back to when I was in high school still. Yeah, that shows you how long she's been with us. I was still in high school, and I remembered I was downstairs in my room, and I would often hear a scratching at my door, and it would be her. She'd want to come in, and I'd open the door. I'd let her come in. She'd hop up on my bed, spin around about 2 or 3 times, and then just lay down flat, and then just lean over on her side and want me to pet her. And she was a good dog, man. She was, and it was hard seeing her that way, and I'm just glad that she's at rest now. But I'm gonna be honest with you. When we were at the clinic where we put her down, I'm glad that we weren't recording that because I cried like a little bitch. I cried. I looked like a rubber-faced clown, honestly. I looked like it was like I'd smelled too many onions and also somebody farted all at the same time. Like my face was so constricted up. I was just like, and I couldn't help myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the roughest part of the week. The lighter side of things, we've actually started. Actually, we're done with most of the editing now. There's only a couple more things to do, but we've actually started editing, more. We've done a gameplay video in Rainbow Six Siege, Nick playing it, and I have devoted, I'd say, at least 10 to 12 hours into this video, and it's basically just been me throwing as many memes in there as I possibly can. I mean, holy hell. I actually took a picture of the extended out track and showed all the tracks on there. I counted it up, and it's I believe before this most recent update, which I was able to get rid of a few tracks, I was up to 15. I was up to 15 tracks of different audio, video, and just a whole bunch of different shit all together, all in one thing. And the clip is only 5 minutes long. That's right. I dedicated 10 to 12 hours of my life to editing a 5-minute video.
Is that going on the main channel?
Yeah, it's going to be going on the main channel, and hopefully you all will enjoy it whenever we release it. And
I think it's fucking hilarious so far.
thank you, Nick. Nick approves, which he's the star of the video.
Yeah.
I tried to make it to where it was as funny as it could be, but not overwhelming. Because there's certain videos that you see, like some of the old MLG videos, they were like sensory overload because it was like air horns everywhere and Doritos and Mountain Dew flying in everywhere, and of course there had to be an obligatory PewDiePie appearance, which his mouth would then open up and like suck in everything like a gigantic supermassive black hole. Yeah, those were the glory days of MLG videos. But thankfully I didn't do that, but I did include some pretty tasty memes in there, so hopefully you all will enjoy it whenever we release it. Probably sometime this week. I haven't fully decided. There's still a couple sections of the video we need to finish. I worked on the thumbnail last night, and that was a lot of fun because I had Nick make some pretty funny faces. I had him like try and do like a serious face. I had him do like a kind of scared face, and then I had him do a face where he was like outrageously screaming like ah! And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun doing that, and
I can go up there more and play with you guys.
yeah, and
I'll show you the character that he replaced my face with.
oh, Fuse, or not Fuse, Thermite.
It's my main attacker.
Yeah, but but on top of that, we've also been busy with pre-production on the short film that we're working on. Can't tell you the name of it. Don't worry, we'll have an update video for you around the start of the month, letting you all know exactly what the video or what the short film entails. And we are. Oh, there he is. There's Thermite. Yeah.
Okay.
I I did a little bit of Photoshop and masking magic to make things work, and
So imagine that guy, but with my face and hair.
yeah,
It would work, yeah.
I made it work. I twisted Nick's head around enough, and I made it to where the helmet went over top of his hair, and his hair's like spiking out on the sides. But I'm very happy with how it turned out. That being said, I just a lot of stuff that's been going on, guys, that we've been working on doing new things. For instance, it really started with around, I'd say, a couple weeks ago when we updated our banner on the channel. I loved the reaction we got from that on our Facebook and other social media that we posted it on. And we also updated, there's another donation, thank you very much. But we also updated our thumbnail formats, which going forward, I'm going back to how we used to do our thumbnails, where I actually have the Renegades react to, and then like the video subject and everything. And it's just been fun trying these things again and doing new things. But yeah, this week has been really, really interesting, and it's sort of opened my eyes with a lot of stuff that we've done, like me trying new things and trying to do new stuff, and also having stuff edited and everything with Nick and Wild Wolf doing the shows, especially Nick this week having to deal with Avatar, because both episodes of Avatar 18 and 19 were blocked here in the States from viewing here in the States. Before I released the video today, I sent a message to Nelvana yesterday around like 4 or 5 p.m. and I said, "Hey, this is about the 15th time I've had to call you guys over this crap. This keeps happening. Please make efforts to make this not happen anymore." And they sent me a message back saying, "We'll make every effort to make sure this doesn't happen again." And I'm like, "Thank you." And thankfully, at 12:30 today, just afternoon, they released both copyright claims on both videos, and now both videos are available to view.
Cool.
The episode we released today and the episode that we plan to release next week are both available now. So yeah, they're no longer blocked, and I'm happy about that.
So you guys are almost done with season 1 then?
Yes, we are almost finished with book 1. We have 2 more episodes in terms of release on YouTube, but currently we are 2 episodes in on book 2 in terms of recording. Which we've had a lot of fun watching. Had a lot of fun watching these because they've just been, holy hell.
I've watched it. It's one of those things where I've watched this show so many times. It's like, oh man, I don't know if I need to watch it anymore. It's like now
Well-
it's somewhere like I got to give it a couple years before I come back and watch it. So.
And that's understandable because you can overwhelm yourself on too many good things. I mean, I just like for the longest time, I thought the Shawshank Redemption was overrated because I saw it so many friggin' times on TBS and TNT back in like the 90s and the early 2000s because they played it literally every week, and I was just sick and tired of seeing it. I'm just like, why are we watching this again? Why is this thing? And
Look, we've only got 3 titles that we bought. All right, we gotta run this out until the contract's end.
And don't get me wrong, I'm glad that TBS and TNT did that to make Shawshank Redemption popular and show people just how good that film is. But at the same time, you can overwhelm people who've seen it way too many damn times.
Oh, yeah.
And me, after cutting the cable and not watching cable TV for a long time, eventually I went back and watched Shawshank Redemption again with Quinn. And Quinn loved it. Quinn thought it was like the best prison film that they'd ever seen. And I'm just like, yeah. And me watching it again, I got a deeper appreciation for the music, the cinematography, the acting. And it just made me realize, damn, this is quite possibly one of the more perfect films I've ever seen. And it came out, you see, there's like monumental years in terms of like every medium. Video games, a lot of people say the video game like boom of the 90s, like video game like 1993 or 4 was like considered peak years for like video games because that was when they entered the mainstream and they were fun and they had all this going for them and everything. It was the peak years of Nintendo, Sega, and everything. And then of course for me, like the year of film I can say has been the best consistently since I was a kid is 1994. 1994, because that year we had Shawshank Redemption, Pulp Fiction, The Lion King, Leon the Professional. I mean, just 4 huge films right there in my mind that are some of the best films of all time.
I don't think I've ever heard of Leon the Professional.
It's actually a really good. It's actually like a really good assassin film. It's about this very, very he's a very dedicated. He's John Wick before John Wick.
Got it.
And he's played by Jean Reno, who is one of the best French actors of all time. And he's an Italian hitman who pretty much just, there's another donation, thank you very much. But he pretty much lives a very meager life. He has 2 rules: no women, no children. And he comes across this girl named Matilda, whose family has just been massacred, outright just destroyed. And he cares for her, and he shows her how to be an assassin, and she shows him how to open up more and how pretty much just and the interesting thing about that film is that was Natalie Portman's big film debut back when she was only 13 or 14 years old.
Yeah.
And she killed it. She was actually one of my favorite parts of the film. And Jean Reno as Leon, I mean, Gary Oldman's probably the best part of that movie because he plays this really corrupt police detective who gets high off of his ass and just goes in and just kills people in these rundown areas just for fun. No, he
bad guys or just anybody?
Anybody. He doesn't care. He's completely amoral when it comes to it. But whenever it's found out that he could go down, he goes complete megalomaniac bad guy. And for me, the funniest part is that, he puts his earphones in, and then he takes a drug, and then all of a sudden that drug kicks in. He's like, oh. Gets out both guns and just goes. Just it's awesome. It's one of the best. It's one of my favorite assassin films ever. But on topics that you see in the title down below. Enough. I think Disney's had enough with Bob Iger and his decision makings. Don't get me wrong, Marvel's been killing it, but. I think we could take a lesson. It's like Star Wars and how to mess up a franchise.
Yeah, how to destroy a legacy.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know if destroy is the right word, but just dull it.
If anything, it hobbled it. It definitely took a sledgehammer to the ankles.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's Star Wars won't be it's going to be for like preceding generations. Star Wars won't necessarily be like that iconic kind of series. Now it'll just be kind of just another one in the
middle of the road.
Yeah, I mean,
and
it was just sad. But.
And I think that effectively we watched a Nostalgia Critic video yesterday, and I think spoilers for future reactions coming out. Doug Walker actually made like one of the best points. There's a passion that is to the prequels that made people still excited to watch all three of the prequel films, but yet there was something missing in the new trilogy films that was missing, that had diminishing returns, and less people came to watch them. And effectively, Doug said it's because of a creative vision. You see, the Star Wars prequel trilogy, whether you love it or hate it, is quite possibly like it's one of the more it's more the unified direction that George Lucas wanted it to go.
Yeah.
Whereas the new trilogy, which goes, J.J. Abrams' direction, Rian Johnson's direction, and then J.J. Abrams' direction back again. But instead of it pulling back and getting back to that middle ground where everything's good, instead it splinters off into like this alternate timeline where it just picks and chooses what it wants to keep from the previous films.
Yeah, I would say that with the prequels, it's kind of a situation where, like, I know people talk about like there's so much politics in it.
There is,
which I could see how that would for when you're trying to target that for children, that's just not gonna work.
No,
but
it isn't. But
compared to the new trilogy, where it just doesn't, it just kind of, it's like two ambiguous sides. One's obviously bad guys, but they're just bad guys for some reason. Then you have the good guy, but there's no explanation for anything. And I think maybe the prequels are they have a little bit more strength to them when you factor in like the Clone Wars series and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the new films have an ambiguity to them that leaves people more confused than it does.
Yeah, and obviously the misdirection between directors. And stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and people, and Doug made a point saying people often look for who to point fingers at. Do you point fingers at Rian Johnson? Do you point fingers at J.J. Abrams? Here's what I'm going to say: if you're going to point fingers at someone who is utterly responsible for the train wreck that we got from the new trilogy, you need to look at the person who called the shots and decided, oh, hey, we can have 3 different directors and give them full... there's another donation. Thank you very much. But, yeah, give them complete and total creative control over each individual film and not have to worry about, unifying vision. Instead, what they did with and he made a comparative to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I know people are sick and tired of hearing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but you cannot deny that when Joss Whedon was in control, there was a unifying vision to it. However, it wasn't a vision that really could last that long. But then the Russo brothers came in and completely reworked it and reworked characters around to where some of your least favorite films from the first half of the Marvel Cinematic Universe became some of your favorites to watch. For instance, a concept as drab as convoluted and confusing as the Guardians of the Galaxy, all of a sudden, boom, it becomes one of the biggest films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And then the Captain America films, which to me kept consistent. Well, no, the first one was middle-of-the-road action film, very old-school style. Yeah. It had that old-school feel to it. I liked it,
but I liked it. It was kind of, good story. I didn't have a problem.
But it's a story we've heard 100 times.
The second one was awesome.
Oh, yeah. Winter Soldier and Civil War consistently, to me, kept getting better and better. They built upon the good things instead of keeping the mistakes of the previous films. And Thor, same thing. When the first Thor film was middle of the road, everyone was just like, okay, maybe they'll do better with the next one. And then when I heard Christopher Eccleston was going to be playing like the lead Dark Elf, I'm like, yes, that's perfect casting. and they use him for all of about 15 minutes, and his character's kind of...
Hey, he's
his
Heimdall.
Well,
it's not a whole lot about Heimdall.
Well, not Heimdall. He was the leader of the Dark Elves.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Idris Elba.
Yeah. No, Idris Elba, I love him. I mean, no, Heimdall, he's awesome. Okay. I wish they'd bring him back.
Well, I completely blanked on what you were going to say.
the Dark Elf story, I thought, oh, this is going to be awesome, and then...
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot.
Yeah, Thor Dark World was very underwhelming, and I think it's probably, to me, the worst Marvel film. I mean, there's a very few that I can put in the bad, there's no really bad Marvel films. There's just mediocre. The lowest one I can rate is mediocre.
Yeah, I mean, at least I don't know, what is it called? This arc here up to Infinity War.
Yeah.
What has it been?
That's been the phase 1 through 3.
Yeah. So I mean, that is very much a product of, the sum is better than its parts or something. It's greater than its parts. Obviously, you have
I agree with that.
Some of the movies, they're kind of like, Incredible Hulk, the first one, is very forgettable.
It is. And I think they acknowledge that whenever not only do they pretty much forget about it as soon as it happened, but they recast. And which the reason why they recast because Ed Norton wanted too much money.
Yeah.
Which, he's Ed Norton. He can make demands if he wants to. But he did miss out on being in quite the adventure.
Yeah.
And I got to say, I think Mark Ruffalo makes a better Bruce Banner. Even though we haven't seen him in a solo Hulk film. I think as he works in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is beautiful. It works in a very effective way because he's an antithesis to certain characters. Like he's a rival to Thor. He's a potential love interest for Black Widow, even though that was shoehorned in out of nowhere. He's also a potential mental rival for Tony Stark whenever it comes to building things and making things that can benefit the mission, especially when he's in his Bruce Banner form. But overall, man, I mean, what the Marvel Cinematic Universe did was amazing.
Oh, I mean,
21 films.
The fact that they were able to carry keep the popularity up for, what was it, like 11 years or something?
Well, yeah,
and then as it did. I mean, definitely is to be commended.
And it crescendoed at the right time. It crescendoed with Endgame,
which kind of makes it's
perfect.
It makes the proceeding on with more movies. I get it. It's still on people's minds and stuff. I mean, when does Black Widow come out?
Black Widow comes out this year. I forget. I think July, May. Or no, I think May.
Yeah.
I think in May sometime.
I won't say no to Scarlett Johansson.
Oh no, I won't either. But, and I always wanted a Scarlett Johansson Scarlet. Not Scarlet Witch, but Black Widow solo film.
Yeah, like some of the other movies that they're trying to put out for like other side characters. It just kind of it. Like the Thor movie, is it supposed to focus more on like Natalie Portman?
That's what's got me confused. I don't know. I mean, there's decisions that are being made in the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward into Phase 4. That's the actors are even upset about it. Like Chadwick Boseman, who plays T'Challa in the Black Panther films, is upset with how his character is being pretty much pushed to the side for the next Black Panther film.
It's supposed to be like the character's sister or something.
Yeah, they're passing off the torch to they're saying Shuri, I think.
Yeah.
And which, don't get me wrong, I love Shuri, but
she was my favorite character in Black Panther. So
she is, but she was there to be sort of a counterpoint to T'Challa because T'Challa was trying to maintain traditions, but also moving into the new century. Because if he wanted to, he could have just said, "Shuri, you're not allowed to make stuff." Mm-hmm. But instead, he understands how gifted Shuri is, and he lets her do her thing, and that's awesome. That's how a leader should be. A leader should encourage those who are gifted to help and benefit the people and help and benefit the world as a whole. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's up to them to do that. But overall, I would say for me, my problem with that going forward is that Chadwick Boseman is a tremendous actor, and he has done amazing as T'Challa. He's done, to me, he's brought the Black Panther character to life. Yeah. But effectively pushing him out before he's even had a chance to do 3 films by himself.
Yeah.
And that to me is just idiotic, because the film is not built off of Shuri. A film focusing just on Shuri would be interesting. I'd love to see one that focuses just on Shuri. But at the same time, what got Black Panther over big time was also its ensemble cast. I mean, you had Daniel Kaluuya, you had Winston Duke, you had Lupita Nyong'o, you had Diana Guiri, you had Chadwick Boseman, you had Forrest Whitaker, for God's sakes, you had Angela Bassett, you had all of these amazing actors coming together and making something truly spectacular. And for you to throw it asunder just to give Shuri her moment in the sun, instead of letting Shuri have her own film, that to me is wrong.
I don't know. I'm worried that Phase 4 is going to kind of feel like more of milking the for money kind of stuff. And
I think if you keep telling the good stories,
people
will keep coming back.
I could be totally wrong with that. I mean, maybe it'll still keep knocking out.
I'm worried as well because what they were wanting to do for the next Doctor Strange film, which is another one of my favorite in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's probably Nick's favorite character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They are completely jackbooting the idea that Scott Derrickson, the original director for the first Doctor Strange film, had for the sequel. He wanted the sequel to be sort of a horror film and have horror elements in it, and be a lot more like.
They were trying to do that with like the X-Men thing, right?
The New Mutants.
Yeah, like with the what's her name?
Logan,
right?
Maisie Williams.
In Logan, the girl.
Oh no! I'm sorry. Daphne Keane.
Right, like
Daphne Keane. What they were doing with her.
It seemed like it was supposed to be kind of like a kind of a sequel-ish type thing after that.
Yeah, it was effectively
like
a continuation / reboot
right.
with the New Mutants at the helm. But the thing is, Fox, where the buyout happened with Disney, that film kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, and after the failure,
now it's in development. Huh?
No, it's scheduled for release now, but it's been in waiting now for about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer like a long time.
Yeah, and the thing with that is they wanted to do a horror thing with it, and they may very well. But keep in mind, this is the X-Men. And there's only so much you can do with horror elements in that.
Disney's on the show,
what made me mad about what they did with the Doctor Strange sequel is that they got Benedict Cumberbatch signed on. They got Scott Derrickson coming back as the director. Derrickson wanting to do something new and take Doctor Strange in a horror direction, which it like shows the true horrors of the multiverse and like the trappings of the multiverse and how Doctor Strange can get lost in there and be pretty much a slave to like the weight of the multiverse and how he can lose his mind. And I would love to have seen that, but then Disney pulled the plug on that and they told Scott Derrickson to take a hike. And now Scott Derrickson's gone, and they're pretty much back at square one on rewriting the Doctor Strange sequel. And I'm like, you pretty much brought this guy in to do a Doctor Strange movie. You liked his vision. You liked what he was doing. And he played it safe in the first film. But yet, you don't want him to take risks for the second film and grow the character beyond. I mean, isn't that what they did with Captain America in Winter Soldier?
I always love the with Winter Soldier, where it was that creepy. I don't know what the sound was, but whenever like you'd hear it in the background, like building crescendo.
Oh yeah, that actually was bowed. That was actually a bowed. I think it was bowed glass strands, and they just kept like doing that and like building up the speed more and more and more and more, and then eventually it got to that crescendo, and then the big action scene would happen, and like, oh gosh,
so cool.
Oh, I love sound design that takes risks and does shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, sound is so important to get in that film, but yeah, I mean it it's I think it's for them it's kind of a consistency with theme, and the general theme that you have with Marvel stuff is kind of that classic I don't know classic but action adventure.
But you have to take risks, otherwise people are going to see it as the same generic nonsense.
Right.
I mean, that's just the same way as they changed up because Captain America.
Nate, we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
I know who can afford to take the risks, and if the risks, reap reward, awesome. But if they don't, hey, we can still dial it back and take him on and take Doctor Strange on another regular adventure. You see, it's the same thing that they ran into whenever they did the Pirates of the Caribbean films. Every Pirates of the Caribbean film, the plot kept getting more and more convoluted, and instead of having fun with Captain Jack Sparrow going out there on the high seas, getting into hijinks, as base and as simple as that can be, that's why people tuned in.
I enjoyed the first three. I didn't like the second.
Oh my gosh.
The fourth and fifth one.
But you got to agree, every single one kept getting more and more convoluted and kept getting more and more away from the point. The point of the adventure is to have the adventure with Captain Jack and the crew of the Black Pearl. Maybe there's new people who come on the Black Pearl and completely change up certain personas on the ship. For instance, Mr. Gibbs, who's the first mate on there, all of a sudden they get this new ammunitions officer on there, and this ammunitions officer is a bit crazy and has like a black powder fetish, and he's just like, look at the powder. He's like, no, you stay away, don't go near it. And then all of a sudden he's just like, come on, please. I just want a little spark. Was all it would need.
This was like a fan fiction that you wrote.
No, I didn't know. I just literally came up with this off the top of my head. I don't, there's so many ways you can have fun with the crew of the Black Pearl and Jack Sparrow out there. Jack Sparrow, of course, needs to be the anchor, which, hey, Disney, give Johnny Depp his friggin' part back.
Yeah.
You stole that from him with allegations that were unproven, and now that the cat's out of the bag and it's been proven that he, in fact, was the one getting abused, you aren't giving his part back. That's nonsense.
But then that would be admitting that they were wrong.
Oh, exactly. Oh, my gosh, admitting that we're wrong. Look, I do that every day. Whenever I'm found out that facts aren't right, I always retract and I always correct myself. And look, it's not the hardest thing to do. I know pride is a killer, and people don't want to admit that they're wrong, and they'd rather, eat a bullet than admit that they're friggin' wrong. But, you have to. You have to if you want to grow as a human being. If you want to grow as a human being, you have to at least just sit back and say, I was incorrect with things. I should have listened more. I should have looked at the facts from both sides. I should have been more critical. I should have been more what's the word I'm looking for? Skeptical. I should have been more skeptical of just hearing one side of the story and then that's it. And it's just idiotic for people out there to just jump the gun on every
People don't like being wrong.
I know they don't.
They want to be, on the money side, and that's why you can see that same shit in politics too.
Well, I don't like being wrong, but I can at least admit that when I am wrong and grow from that. Because if you're not willing to grow, then what the hell are you doing? Other than just being a petty little shit who just sits there with their arms folded, it's like, I don't care. I don't believe it. It's like, is that fair to anybody? No. But I get what you're saying in terms of politics. No one in politics wants to admit that they're wrong.
Yeah, you kind of get into this mindset of, well, if I give in, then it completely destroys the viewpoint that I've been standing behind for years and years. And you see this. I mean, especially on
No, I get
the thing with like MAGA people on one side and the never Trumpers on the other.
And honestly, I hear the arguments between both of them, and I'm just like, guys, you're both idiots. Can we just sit down and talk about this instead? La 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 la. People plug their ears and would rather just listen and live in an echo chamber. I mean, when you live in an echo chamber and your points of view have never been challenged once, you wind up looking like a jackass whenever you actually enter the real world. I mean, if I want to, I could just sit in my basement all day and do nothing but read articles from like the Daily Wire or the Daily Beast or something like that. But instead, I read articles from both sides of the spectrum. I read people who are middle of the road, like Tim Pool and Phil DeFranco, and I also have read some stuff by Huffington Post, and I take in all sides, and it's just like that one thing that kept popping up on Facebook about the whole thing with the taxing the ultra rich, for 52%, and said that it was misquoted and said that he actually wanted to tax anyone who made over $29,000 a year over 52%. And there's been so many people who posted that, and so many people have been posting retractions.
You're talking about Bernie Sanders?
Yeah. And people have been posting retractions and everything. And me, I'm just like, guys, this could have all been avoided if people would have just read the facts.
I saw it in the debate. I think it was something like 4% or something.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I've read up on everything that Bernie Sanders has proposed and everything. And don't get me wrong. Free stuff always sounds good. But you always got to remember, in a society where cash is king, who's going to pay for it? And honestly, if you start taxing the ultra... This is the same problem that Margaret Thatcher ran into whenever she raised the upper tax rate in the UK up to 70%. She raised it up to 70%. Like, people who were, like, ultra rich all of a sudden started moving to the United States, started moving to all these other countries because here's the thing, these people who have the money, they have the means to move elsewhere. That's just like Eduardo Saverin, one of the founders of Facebook. He saw what he's going to have to be paying in taxes for him literally doing nothing. And he was just like, I'm thinking I'm going to take a vacation in Singapore. Actually, I like it here in Singapore. I'm going to stay here. Like, I'm going to get a green card. Actually, I'm going to seek for citizenship. And because of how loose the laws are in Singapore, he got his citizenship within, I think it was a year and a half of living there. And the man is worth over $7 billion.
I mean, you can kind of counter that with things like tariffs and stuff, though.
Well,
if you take your shit to other countries, but
see, the thing is, they don't care. The people at the top, they'll sell out everything immediately and just live off the fat for the rest of their lives.
Right. But like, I mean, I get the argument as far as I think some of the concern of like that is one, there is this Cold War mentality that is still, especially for a lot of the older generations, that they grew up with the propaganda, the
Red Panic,
the McCarthyism and stuff. So it's harder to get through with that stuff. But there's also the misleading things on it's going to be Venezuela, it's going to be Cuba. I mean, Europe, every country or most countries in Europe have these systems that Sanders is talking about, and they're not on fire.
Well, the thing is, he keeps listing like the Nordic countries. The Nordic countries actually have more economic freedom than we do in the States. Do you know why that is? Because their systems are unregulated, and the only thing that they have regulated is their healthcare system. And the only reason they're able to pay for their healthcare the way they do is because they don't have to pay for a defense budget.
Right, because we're
footing their bill.
I recognize that. I totally understand. Like, why does Europe get to have all these great things we don't? Well, because they're not putting a lot of focus in their defense. So I do understand that side of the argument.
And I just pointed out, I've not heard of a single socialist country that isn't on the macro scale that doesn't have a massive amount of support in certain ways that is successful. I mean, people always list off Canada, and I'm just like, Canada doesn't pay their defense bill, and they have a regulated military of 90,000 people.
But at the same time, let's be real. I mean, if we're standing by we need to be the global police and we need to throw as much money at the military, then yeah, that's why we can't do other things. But geographically, we are in a pretty comfortable place.
No, we are.
Where we don't need to worry about threats.
And I agree. We need to limit our spending back on like our defense budget to certain degrees.
The problem is that argument on anybody, like on both sides of both parties and stuff, that argument is always just like dismissed. Like, if you talk about that, clearly you're unpatriotic.
What about lowering the defense budget?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, we don't have to police the world. If these countries are capable of policing themselves, for instance, the civilized countries like in Europe and in certain countries in Africa and the Middle East, yeah, I think we should allow them to police themselves. And the truth is, we can't succeed. We can't force people to succeed. If people want free, you see, this is the argument that I've heard 100 times. It's just like, we're getting everything for free. in truth, no, we're not. The freedom to do as you please versus getting stuff for free are two completely different things. You see, I would rather have the ability to build myself up. That's just like what I've done with this channel, what I've done with everything that I have around me. Everything that I've done has been for the crucial benefit of this channel, and I don't want to have this channel by myself. That's why I'm paying Nick to edit videos. That's why I want to pay people who work for me and people who do. That's like why I'm paying to rent the studio here so we can keep doing this podcast, because I like doing this podcast. I like having fun and coming down here and bullshitting with you every week. And the thing is, I have because of the economic freedom that we have in this country that allows me to do this. I think that that's a good thing, and I think there's so many people out there who, if they I have a friend who is completely on board with Bernie Sanders. I've talked to him. I've asked him, hey, here's the thing. Here's what he's wanting to limit. If he does this, this pretty much guarantees that I won't be able to do what I do anymore because of certain things that he's wanting to implement and certain things that he's wanting to police. For instance, what he's recommending for the internet infrastructure and everything. He's actually wanting to police and limit people's abilities to live stream and have them pay the government for more. And I've seen that. I'm just like, that scares the shit out of me.
I haven't heard that. I don't know.
Well, it's his infrastructure that he wants to build. He wants to build unlimited infrastructure for internet here in the United States. I'm all aboard with that. I want the United States to be more connected. I want everyone to be able to experience the internet in its full glory. But in terms of what is being proposed, they're also saying that limitations must be placed in order for people to seek out other prospects, such as the one thing that he stated was that everyone would have mandatory community service. I remember him saying that. He said mandatory community service at least 10 hours a week from people who are unemployed. And I'm like, that doesn't, but that to me doesn't really make that much sense.
I mean, unemployed as far as like if you're see, that's the thing, like with the argument with people against welfare thing, it's something that I think people would be a little bit more forgiving with it if it was something like what Bernie Sanders is talking about, like the jobs guarantee thing, where you put people to work that don't have jobs. Then they're getting paid, even if it's by the government, they're getting paid for that work. Now, obviously, that costs the taxpayer. So, yeah, I get that part of things. But, I mean, everybody's been talking about an infrastructure plan, getting our infrastructure, because we got like a fucking B- or some shit on our infrastructure. Maybe, if we, put some money in infrastructure, maybe. And with the military thing, like, look, I'm very much a person of what is it? Duality. I have a lot of coherent dissonance with a lot of ideas, because I like to see it from different point of views. Obviously our military budget is high, but at the same time, I don't like the idea of authoritarian China on the rise, gradually buying up countries around the world.
I don't either.
And there's not another country really to stand up to that as a bulwark against that.
And the truth is, the only way to fight against it is to show people the benefits of capitalism versus the starvation of the communism that they have in China. That's the thing.
See,
you witnessed it yourself.
But here's the thing. I think people need to come to terms with. China is communist in name only. It is far more of a fascist regime, the way it's structured, because I mean they have corporations and you can make money, and they have their own billionaires,
but they're limited to which only they can make, and every business over there is pretty much owned by the federal government.
Well, what it is they basically they have they pretty much have political officers that pretty much the government officials that have to serve on their boards and stuff that pretty much mandate orders from the central government.
Yeah,
the government controls the system. Now, aside from that, I think they're free to make as much money as they want. I don't know how money is redistributed to people because China is doing pretty good on like the industrial side. Like they have plenty of billionaires and stuff like that, but there is still a whole fuck ton of poverty in there. So it's clearly not being distributed.
Wealth distribution and that. Well, it's absolute power corrupts absolutely. Oh, yeah. It's the same thing that the Soviet Union ran into, and you see. There were, at the end, the Soviets tried to implement parts of capitalism into their communist system, and it still didn't work. They did glasnost and perestroika, and people were still defecting. Mm-hmm. And you see, China, the big thing about China is that it has over 1 billion people dedicated that they can put to work however the hell they want under threat of the gun, because China's population is not armed in the slightest.
Right.
And the thing with China being the way they are is that your choice to do things your way, if that doesn't fit the Chinese mandate, then you're screwed.
Well, like, I mean, everybody in China that at least goes to school and stuff, like, by the end of high school, they basically take this really big exam that pretty much more or less sets you in a tier in society of like, you
determines where you
pretty much you can only be maybe a supervisor at best, whereas this guy has the quote unquote merits to, which again with a corrupt system like this is not like I do like the idea of some meritocracy, as far as I think people should have certain academic qualifications if they want to be the president or be a senator or something.
Yeah.
There should be, you shouldn't be, Trump is an anomaly. It can be argued that, he's smart in some ways. He's a good salesman. But I don't see him passing, a high level university like exam, like
you're saying he'd score average on the SAT,
right? I mean, and so I think there needs to be some of that, like in my sci-fi universe.
Well, no. In terms of intelligence, you see, there's different types of intelligence. You see.
Yeah, no, I get that. Like street smart and
not even street smart. There's dedication. You see, right. Whenever I went through school, I wanted to be in history, and that was almost killed for me in my senior year of high school whenever I took a history class and I failed it. I failed the history class, but then I took the advanced placement, or not the advanced placement, what was it called? They were the tests that you could take. You could score a 600 was a perfect on it. I forget what it was called. SOLs. Okay. They had the SOLs, and I didn't just pass it. I scored a 594. I got an almost perfect.
Oh.
And my history teacher was embarrassed because I scored the highest out of everyone in my class, and I failed. And they saw that as a failure of the system instead of a failure of the student. And truth, given that it was state education instead of, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying and advocating that private education is the only kind of education that you can have, but you have to have a set infrastructure in place. Like we talked about infrastructure. If you want to educate your populace, you have to have a mandate that teachers have to meet in order for them to instruct. And the thing is, my history teacher did not have a degree in history.
Yeah,
instead he was an assistant football coach.
Right,
they gave him that job as a spare off thing because they didn't have the budget to actually go out and hire a good history teacher.
But see, that's part of the problem is that again, and that's one of part of the reason why I support Bernie Sanders is because education is more of a priority for him than the military budget.
Well,
I mean,
he says that, but then again, he prefers socialism over every other type of, which, truth be told, given that he's been just a couch surfing hippie his entire life and has never had to worry about money because his parents kept sending him checks so that he could live off of, and then all of a sudden he turns 50 and he's like, I want to get into politics now.
See, I think though you might be making that statement with a little bit of a
But honestly, the dude does, like, this is the same guy who says white people don't know what it's like to be poor. That's one of the more ignorant statements I've ever heard in my entire life. This is the guy.
When did he say this?
He said it multiple times. He said it at multiple rallies wherever he was presenting. I forget, it was back in 2016 where I first heard him say it, and then he said it like 3 other rallies. White people don't know what it's like to be poor. And I heard that, I'm like, that is by far one of the more ignorant statements I have ever heard in my entire life.
No.
Some young people active, Black Lives Matter. I'm just talking about everyday activities where police officers are bullying people. So, to answer your question, I would say, and I think it's similar to what the secretary said, when you're white, you don't know what it's like to be living in a ghetto. You don't know what it's like to be poor. You don't know what it's like to be hassled when you walk down the street.
Bullshit.
Or you're dragged out of a car. And I believe that as a nation in the year 2016, we must be firm in making it clear. We will end institutional racism and reform a broken criminal justice system.
Yeah, I mean, again, nobody is perfect. I'm not.
No.
I'm not.
Part with what he's
No,
saying,
I can
but
too.
it's just like the statement. You don't know what it's like to be poor. It's like, yeah,
Right.
Don't know what it's like to be dragged out of a car. Tell that to my mom.
Right, but
Gate City fucking police dragged her out of her car and handcuffed her without reading her fucking rights.
But
definitely white people.
But some of that does kind of end up like when you see shit that like Bloomberg does and stuff.
Well,
and then it's like, okay, well, does some of that argument have merit? I'm not
Well,
saying
no, I mean-
that's entirely true.
Well, parts
you
of
know.
his argument I do agree with. Police brutality needs to be reined in. But however, people pretending that police brutality is the number one thing that is hurting the black community in the United States, when I say this is something that even Louis fucking Farrakhan, the leader of the Nation of Islam, has been saying since God knows when. The biggest problem that is affecting the black community is the 70+% single parenthood rate. And it is a system of welfare that has been set up in this country that has effectively crippled an entire generation of humanity, an entire generation of Americans, and an entire ethnic group of people. I mean, Black America is suffering right now because when they talk about household median incomes, it's hard to talk about that when there's only one parent in the household versus Hispanic communities and especially Asian communities. That's the reason why the Asian community is the richest one out there, is because the single parenthood rate in the Asian community is less than 15%. Caucasians, it's like 25 to 30%. Hispanics, it's actually around 30 to 35%. And it's because of the relentless targeting of Black America by the welfare companies by welfare out there that has pretty much just outright destroyed the black familial unit and has made it impossible for black families to even exist. And what do you think happens when there's no parent in when there's no two parents in the household?
Yeah, I mean,
it's pretty much like a domino effect.
Right.
The child resorts to finding people out there that they can relate with. Therefore, they find gangs. Therefore, they get into drugs. Therefore, they get into violence, and so on and so forth. They're in prison. Next thing you know, that prisoner is making license plates for the federal government for pennies on the dollar for free. Like, when you look at the state-ran prisons and I believe the prison industrial complex does exist. Because when you look at the free labor that these prisons, these state-ran prisons ran by the federal government and by the states, get from that, it's insanity. And when you talk about the legalization of cannabis, when you take away cannabis arrests, that's going to affect the prison systems immensely.
Oh, I know.
Because more than 60% of them are cannabis related.
And that's the thing is again. Problems aside, again, everybody has problems. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders. I haven't heard anybody else, saying that they're going to legalize marijuana on day one. I mean, Trump could do it now.
Well, he could say he could legalize it on day one, but the truth is, it's all a big game.
Well, the
states are determining this quicker than the federal government is, and honestly, I prefer that because if every state signs it in medically, pretty soon
Well,
the federal
what I'm
government
saying,
won't
though,
have a choice because
is-
right now over 30 states have it legal medically.
Right, but that's the thing is I think if Bernie Sanders does it even through executive order, it basically puts that it pushes the I know there's things like the Overton window, but it basically pushes the status of it to the point where okay, nobody's going to be able to come in and be like, no, we're taking that back because there would just be utter revolution.
Trump could have said the same thing about gay marriage, but instead Trump, when he was asked about it, he said, no, it's over, said,
right.
and done. And I respect that about him.
Right.
When he said that, I showed that to my uncle who is gay, and he was raised around this area, which, God have mercy. But I showed him that, and all of a sudden, like, a lot of his fears, because he was living in D.C., and he was contemplating moving out of D.C. whenever Trump was inaugurated. All of a sudden, I'm just like, look at what he said about this. And then all of a sudden, Mike calmed down a little bit. And then he starts to look at things as I do from a fixed point of view. And Mike is very, like, he's liberal-leaning, but at the same time, he understands that politicians really, even the ones who say they're for the people and everything like that, have always been playing towards the middle, and nothing ever gets done.
Right.
And truth be told, Trump could have, if he wanted to, he could have signed an executive order right then and there to just outlaw gay marriage again. But he didn't.
No, and that's the thing. Like, again, I'm not somebody that hates Trump or for like everything.
Oh, I'm critical
I don't.
of the fuck out of him.
I'm critical. I'm sure as shit not going to vote for him.
Unless
but-
if Bernie doesn't get the nomination. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people voting for Trump just to say fuck the establishment.
Right. But like for instance, like this latest thing with the coronavirus, gradually spreading around the world.
Oh yeah, another thing that's in our title.
Turning into pandemic. People. Controversial as it was, Trump basically putting in that the thing where anybody that's been in China for like in the last 14 days or whatever is barred from re-entering the U.S.
And then they brought 14 people back without him knowing about it, and he is pissed.
Right.
I heard about that. That's you see, this puts a lot of people at risk because coronavirus. I know I compared it to SARS and I compared it, but the outbreaks were at least contained for the most part. But this looks as though it's a lot more volatile, and it has a much larger gas tank than SARS did, and the swine flu did.
It's not really as deadly as a lot of those other viruses that we've had scares with in the past. Like, it's only like hopefully 2% mortality rate at this point.
It affects mostly
like spreads is absurd.
Yeah, I mean, then the incubation period is like 2 weeks long or something.
Yeah,
so
that's scary.
Which, I mean, when you think about that, like how many people you interact with in 2 weeks, I mean, this thing probably everybody could have it in 6 months.
And that's why Nick actually talked. Did you say it was the CDC that?
Yeah, yesterday the CDC basically told America, hey, it's not really a question of if it's going to be spreading here anymore, it's when.
Right.
So everybody basically needs to start preparing because there may come a period soon where for up to 2 weeks we may have to stay home to try to quarantine and contain the spread of it.
And that's why, like, with Trump making that decision fairly early on in the process, it's hard to argue with that. I mean,
no, it is.
Because I mean, if he waited 3 months from now when the problem is much worse and there's like 6,000 cases in the U.S., it's already too late. Like the problem it's beyond the point where that any kind of like isolation like that is going to do anything. So. Again, there are things that I can work with people on. I can compromise on the ideas, the merits of.
You talked about a 2% potential 2% mortality rate. The total population of New York City is 25 million people. Now, let's look at 2% of that. That's 500,000 people.
Yeah.
If the entire city of New York gets infected, that's potentially 500,000 people dropping dead.
Like, I'm glad I played the fucking Division 2 because it's giving you some good training right there.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm thinking about going out and like going shopping. Yeah, I'm gonna grab my milk and bread. Yeah, because that's always the two biggest things that go missing from grocery stores whenever there's like a big storm on the horizon or something like that.
Yeah.
Bread and milk. I'm just gonna go out and I'm gonna grab like 5 big jugs of water and just.
Say that's what you need to be grabbing.
Yeah.
Big ass.
Oh, that's what I got. I got like
big
3
ass jugs of water and canned food that will last like, you know, years,
months. Yeah, months and years.
I got like three 5-gallon jugs of like the Primo water jugs.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Good
you'd see me going out with like the fucking ramen noodles or something.
Oh, I'm gonna buy enough supplies to last out for about a month.
It doesn't really have any nutritional
That's
value.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, well, especially instant
Cans of
ramen.
beans and stuff will get you some protein and some nutrients.
Yeah, that's why I've got my multivitamins. I'm actually going to go out and stock up on multivitamins again because I've got those multivitamin gummies. 2 of those a day, man. You're good.
Those things are like fucking. Those are dangerous. They taste too good.
No, well, that's why I don't overdo it.
Have you gotten like the calcium ones that are like coated in sugar?
Yeah.
So
I saw one of those other memes. It's like whenever you eat 2 of the gummy vitamins in a day, and it's like health.
It's good shit. All right, so we got some memes saved up.
Yeah. Guess who's back today?
Uh-oh. Gaming Warthog.
Nope.
Was it?
Who's that?
Dust.
Yep.
Dusk Novakeen. Hey, welcome back, Dusk. Been a while. Where you been, dude?
His first one he sent was a $1 donation. He said, "I'm back," and his name, by the way, instead of Dovahkiin, is Dusk Novakeen.
Dusk.
No.
Oh no. Oh. Go for it. Oh god, here we go. All right.
Do the Superman. Sorry, was it not Superman? Soldier Boy.
I can if you want me to. I still remember it.
I remember back in high school. That shit. My high school, I don't know how it was for you, but when they played that shit at like prom or whatever, everybody lost their fucking mind.
Yeah, I remember it. And everyone did it too.
Yeah. You're like, I was standing in the background, and then that's, woo, and like everybody would just be like running in every direction to like find their friends so they can fucking
Soldier Boy 2.
There's that.
That is a new dance we all called the Soldier Boy.
There's that, and then there was was it the
Cupid Shuffle? I remember that.
No, well, that might be, I was thinking of like the everybody clap your hands.
I want to take bets on what the next one is.
Oh God.
What's it gonna be?
I've taken a vow against betting because of the Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder fight.
There it is. I knew it. I was trying to think of the name, but I couldn't. I was thinking like Nintendo a little bit.
It's back. It's back again. Don't tell a friend.
Shady's back.
Don't tell a friend.
But it's not over.
Sorry, I'm messaging a guy who's got an arcade cabinet he's talking about giving away.
I have an old like bang head here sign from like Spencer's that I got when I was back in school.
Bang your head!
Well, it was like you put it against a wall and like
yeah,
I'll get that for you, so you just fucking drive your head into it next time. That,
yeah, like bang your head here, and I'm just like.
I'll be honest, I still don't know if there's like only 1 or 2 of those, or if it's like a different iteration every time.
There's they've done that one multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Dante010192 donated $5. Said, "Hey, I love your videos. Sorry about the loss of your doggo. I know what you went through. Hang in there. You're the best."
Thank you, Dante. Appreciate that, dude.
Comrade Dog, you must take motion. Yeah, you take motion.
You'll defend us from Germans.
We'll kill the Germans with it. You must protect motherland. It is your duty. Comrade Dog is still aggressively mining to benefit motherland. He's going for workers' victory, to strike down proletariat. He's very good. He's good for motherland.
Okay.
Rudy, is that rifle a more acceptable upgrade? Is it more effective than the Mosin? Do you like the Kalashnikov?
Comrade Dog, now you take Mauser. It is better rifle. You will kill the Russians with it. This is new duty. That is what you will use now.
No.
Now have treat.
What a good doggo.
Give him a hindy.
Comrade Dog, this is Mosin. You use it to kill the Germans.
Remember, no Russian.
Oh, God. That mission.
Man, can you believe that mission coming out like
now?
anytime today? Oh my God!
People would lose their shit.
Yeah, I mean, like I know people were upset back then too.
Yeah, they gave you the option to skip it if you
but
wanted to.
that was before the era of mass shootings that we have now. That was that.
Well, it was around the same time. Just
that-
keep in mind, Virginia Tech happened not too long before that game came out.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech happened in 07. That game came out in 2010.
Yeah, I remember. I was it came out probably. But I mean, like it was. Yeah, I mean, you had Columbine, you had Virginia Tech, but it wasn't as rampant as it is now. Or we have a mass shooting every couple 2-3 months kind of thing that are like get real bad.
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, the Sandy Hook one still gets me because. There's actually a guy who did a step-by-step on what the guy on how the guy went about doing what he did, and the one where he trapped those kids in the bathroom and just like kept firing into it. That is just.
I remember. Yeah, dude. I remember where I was with those. Actually, I think I was at the time I was going. I had just graduated high school. I was going to Asheville Buncombe Community College. And when my time off, I just hang out over ROTC there at the high school. And I remember watching that on the news there, the San Diego thing. Me and my best friend there, we were just like, who the fuck goes into an elementary school? And like, what? I mean,
terrible. Human being.
I mean, no. At that point, you are no longer a human being.
Well,
I mean,
Monster.
There's a part of me that says yes, but there's also a part of me that says by dehumanizing it, you take away from the human condition of the entire thing. But I get both arguments on that. But all right, what's the next
I
meme?
feel like compassion is a fundamental human trait, and when you lack any whatsoever, you are bordering not being able to be considered human anymore.
Fair enough.
I will say with that mission, like in Call of Duty, it's kind of like I approach games with a.
Even animals show compassion, so I mean, like you're technically like, less than an animal at that point.
You're not even a mammal at that point.
Like with that mission in Call of Duty, I like to approach games with morals. Like in Mass Effect, I'm always a paragon, and so with that one, I kind of like. I don't really pull the trigger anymore. I just kind of like walk through the mall, the airport, behind all the other bad guys that are shooting at people, and I'm like,
this
isn't
great. Just shoot at the floors and ceilings.
Yeah, kind of. Oops, I missed. Oops.
I wish you could shoot the dudes in the Makarov in the back.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like, what's the objective there? Okay, we need you to infiltrate this organization so you can stop this guy. But now you're here with this guy that you could just shoot instead of going and joining into a shoot 300.
You could prevent
Russian
it and be a
civilians.
hero. Yeah, you prevent it, just shoot and shoot and shoot, and then all of a sudden it's all over and done with.
It's like you basically step out behind all the dudes. You could just.
Yeah, I don't really like it. It was a little.
Well, and then at that point,
would have hit civilians because there was just so many in front.
Well,
no, shit.
No. Actually, if you look, if he would have gone to the right a little bit, there were no civilians to their left. All the civilians were to their right. So if he would have gone and got the right angle, he could have got all four of them in one spray and then laid down his gun and then put his hands on his head and just let the police take him in. And then after that,
who he is and everything.
Well, and then after that, OSS can come in and save him. Because
maybe there's a reason behind that. I haven't really ever looked it up.
It was to get Makarov's trust to learn where the nuclear devices were.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Because he still had nukes at his disposal.
Huh. All right, that makes more sense.
And they didn't want a repeat of what happened in the first Modern Warfare.
Okay.
All right, what's the next meme there, Nick?
This is from Juggernaugger, and he says,
"Hey, Jug.
It's made with love. Made this edit with an hour and 40 minutes of my time at film prod class."
Okay. Bring it on. Hello. I hope you like it. I hope we do too. Oh no, is this going to be one of my old videos again? Wait a second.
By some minute challenge, your reward will be great. Behold! Whoopsie. Why? I just don't get it. I always catch you fucking. FBI, open up!
It would be pretty funny if, like, in
Oh, you thought it was over, but it was all a ruse. Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, the... Ah, damn it! The Ice Age baby. That Ice Age baby has become a meme now because PewDiePie brought it up. That's the only reason it's a meme now. But you know what? I'm cool with it because I remember Ice Age. That was a pretty funny movie.
I still like Monsters Inc. Kid better.
No, it's fine.
What's her
no,
name?
oh no, Boo.
Boo,
Boo's a much better.
Kitty.
Kitty.
I was telling Nate about the monsters thing. It was like, I like Geralt of Rivia's explanation he gives at one point. So I was like, oh, I see, yeah. I always heard you had two swords, one for monsters and one for people, and he's like, they're both for monsters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, next meme.
From Dusk.
Oh God, here we go. Damn! That booty be tight, bro. I don't know what anime that's from. Honestly, I don't want to know. But go ahead. Go ahead.
I want to know.
For research?
Yes, for research purposes.
Hey!
We talked about the ramifications of that scratch. Some of the crew got upset, and people walked off the show.
It was like the worst timing for a ghost to show up.
If we were in like a town or a department store, people are about to riot.
I watched one person say that they weren't comfortable going back out there again, and then I watched that just spread over the crew like fire.
And people were running like, we can't go back to the other building. The ghosts are over there. We can't get to our cars.
It's like they've taken the territory.
Occupied zone.
Yeah, I developed a tremendous amount of respect for Daniel in that moment, and I realized that Daniel and I are definitely on the same team. Like, the producers are coming over and they're like, people, we're not sure we may have to shut this down. People aren't comfortable. And then he goes,
Are you serious? You gotta be kidding me.
You said we just got what we wanted. We're looking for ghosts, and we find a ghost, and you want to shut the show down? Kick him off the set.
People were appeasing ghosts.
Daniel literally, he was like, I don't care, get rid of them. I'll do their job. We're looking for ghosts, we're finding ghosts. This is going according to plan. But it was...
It's true!
Also super informative.
So now there's a document that says if there's a ghost and you feel uncomfortable, you can politely fuck off.
I like Daniel. Daniel's a funny dude. I'm glad they got him.
But we're not liable if you see a ghost.
No.
Yeah. You're the only one talking sense, and I was blown away.
Well, there's two of us talking to us, but yeah.
Don't worry, Jeff. If we have to, like, just send everybody home and do the rest of the show on our iPhones, we will.
Fair enough. Yeah, I remember when they did
Ghost
Achievement
Hunters.
Hunter. I watched it and it was pretty good. It's pretty good.
I think I watched the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, it's very good stuff, and I'm glad they've gone back to doing more.
Here's my problem with that theory. That was our. We were out there the night before. We were in transit, so he wasn't.
But yeah, those Achievement Hunter animated. They're like, I like them actually a little bit better than the Rooster Teeth animateds now. I mean, because don't get me wrong, the Rooster Teeth animateds always will have a special place in my heart because back when Jordan was doing them, I mean, he did them from just like love and care, and then all of a sudden they started taking off on Rooster Teeth's channel, and they're like, "Hey Jordan, want to move to Austin?" He's like, "Nah, I'm good." To which they're just like, "We really like you to move to Austin so we could put these out a lot faster." He's like, "Nah, I'm good." And
to be fair, I mean, when I got out of the airport and when I landed at Austin there for RTX, goddamn, dude. That place is a fucking sweat factory.
Again, talking about updating infrastructure. If they'd update their friggin' roads.
Well, no, I just meant outside.
I mean,
you step outside
Texas.
and it's like walking into an oven.
It's Texas, dude. I mean, it's what you expect. I mean, it's what you can expect. But all right, what's the next meme there, Nick?
Dusk said, I tried getting you guys to react to these guys a couple times, so I resorted to this.
Oh. Which ones?
Just as a nice, relaxing game of golf.
Oh, pre-made. Yeah, actually, I saw that in our request channel. Actually, we were gonna do it next time we were gonna get on there.
I have a spoon. I have a spoon. That barrel top left.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, no, it's not.
You suck.
There you go. Then you just got to get it in the hole in 3 seconds.
Nailed it.
Right, it's in the right on your right hand side now.
I'm under the kangaroo's ass.
You said.
Oh my god.
Right there in front of you,
The gold thing.
The little portal.
I don't see it.
I don't believe.
She got it anyway.
No, I keep going too soft. I should go hard inside. Not that hard.
Too hard, too hard.
Yeah, there you go. Yes! Hole in it.
Hole in 8. Hell yeah.
It's right behind you.
That wasn't hard enough.
Oh no, I see what you did.
Boink.
He's pulling a Ryan.
Bip.
Oh god, I think
Bip. Boop. Oh, he missed. Yay! Oh, barely. Ooh.
Yeah. I'm just going first as well.
Bip.
Not anymore.
Every time I hear Ryan bip, I'm just like, uh-oh, who did he fuck this time? And then you hear like Michael go, Ryan, you son of a bitch. And I'm like, got him.
It's fun when Jeff gets pissed.
Well, of course, because Jeff does like a bunch of things. Like he goes, how, and like he gets so mad so quickly.
What'd you get next there?
All right, next.
Last one I have, right? I know it's from yesterday, and then I think Jacob showed me this the other day. It's Mega Man Zero's EX Legacy Collection trailer.
Oh yeah. Me and Jake actually went to Walmart, and he was just like, "Can we go back to the electronics section real quick?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Go back there, and we were looking for this. Needless to say, it wouldn't be out for another 3 days.
So yeah, I'm just I'm not a huge fan of like side scroller stuff. It's just not my thing. Yeah,
that's fine.
Everybody kind of has their preferences.
I started out on side-scrolling games. Part of my childhood.
I remember playing them back when I had like a Game Boy Advance or something, but
The first system I ever got was Super Mario Brothers. The first system I actually asked for and really wanted after that was Super Nintendo. The reason was because I got to play Super Metroid on a Toys R Us game kiosk.
Yeah.
I love the modern day retro tribute side scroller games like Shovel Knight and Axiom Verge and shit like that. I don't know, I still have a lot of fun with them. I played through one recently on a channel called Bladed Fury that was really badass.
All right,
Nick. So what else do you want to talk about?
Oh, is there any more memes?
End quickly, or I need to take like a 2-minute break, if that's okay with you guys.
Go ahead.
Where are we at?
Yeah, I think we're at an hour and 15 minutes. Double check that. Oh crap. Hour and 19 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can do about another 15, maybe 20 minutes.
Run out. I don't know if you want to pull up that art real quick, but
yeah. Well, can't really. If we had that little screen thing, the little Zen screen.
Yeah,
out here,
you need a laptop.
Yeah, like a little thing.
Taking
yeah, it's like initiating control.
What is the thing that they say in Mass Effect 2? What are they?
When the Harbinger takes over?
Yeah.
It's like
assuming control.
Yes, you have failed me. Yeah, at the end when
it's like you kind of feel bad, like at the end of that, because like you see like the dude disconnects control, and like obviously the harvesters are like they're so far gone, but like they kind of like become aware. The guy
that last instant where you see his he's like, what have I done? And then just destroyed, and it's like, yep, there you go. I mean,
it's kind of like, oh, I mean, you're horribly, disgusting, but oh.
Well, when you find out what they were, I mean, they were the Protheans.
Oh yeah.
Before they were beforehand. I mean, but it's just how the cards fell, and then
the bigger versions of those that like they had like skulls in their things that floated around. Those were fucking creepy.
Oh yeah, dude. Well, some of the creepiest ones for me were the harvested Asari. So because all of a sudden you enter this one room, and all of a sudden this like really like tall, lanky harvester witch comes in. She's just like, just like uses psionic pulses to keep pushing you back. You're like, oh god!
And their ability to like just jump, like they do that, like that thing you see in every like the cliche thing in horror movies where like, the phantom will like blink towards you.
Yeah,
and it was like, oh god, get away from me. But
and the way it looks too, especially the one that Morinth becomes if you take that path. Have you ever seen that one?
I haven't.
Whenever I know you probably never choose Morinth over Samara.
No, I don't.
I always chose Samara.
Like I said, I'm a Paragon kind of guy.
Yeah, me too, mostly. There's certain Renegade things I did, and at those points I could not deny it. Yeah. Like pushing that one guy out the window, I'm just like, yeah, this has to be done.
Yeah,
I pushed him out the window, and I'm like, yeah, he deserves that. Mm-hmm. But and I also never punched the reporter. Never, not once. And I think that means I win. I think that's actually an automatic game win right there. To hell with what happens with the rest of the game and the Reapers. Just because you never punch the reporter, your chivalry remains intact and you win the fucking game.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I did that I think my first couple playthroughs I punched the reporter, but then like
wham,
third or fourth. Which by the way, Mass Effect. Hopefully, I've been hearing rumors abound that a possible remastered.
Yes,
is going on,
which if you ask me, they should have done that before they did Andromeda, because a quick
Mass Effect
remaster.
3. Mass Effect 3 had only come out 5 years before Andromeda came out.
But still, if anything, this could give them an opportunity to fix Mass Effect 3's ending, like from the get go. I mean, if they're remastering the games, then they can effectively take.
You mean as far as like adding more to like the consequences and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be
that'd be I can agree with that choice 100%, because don't get me wrong, I love the vision that they did for the first two Mass Effect games, especially 2. 2 is probably my favorite Mass Effect game. It is my favorite Mass Effect game, but it's probably one of my favorite action RPGs of all time, because it perfectly balanced the RPG elements and it perfectly balanced the action segments.
Right.
And plus the characters, the old mainstays from the first game that you keep, plus the new ones that come in, especially ones like Thane, ones like Samara, ones like Jack, ones like Miranda, ones like Jacob. I mean, there's so even the DLC ones, even the Zaid, and then
Zaid was fun.
Zaid was awesome. Being in there and listening to him talk about his old rifle, he's like, I've had that old rifle for a long time, and I gotta be honest, if I could repair it, I'd still use it, because I love that thing. I've killed so many people with it. And then of course there's Kasumi as well, who is such a great addition for her being a hacker and her being just like able to go invisible and then just assassinate people. I was like, yes!
That was one of those things, like, it's if nothing else, it was nice to be able to go on like that mission to like that one human colony or whatever. Where, I mean, obviously you're only at like this one mansion, but you can kind of see the background of like the cities and stuff there. It's just kind of cool, like world building, like providing new environments to see.
Well, yeah.
Because, a lot of the places that you go, they're very linear. There's not a whole lot of like.
There's not a lot of exploring to do, but some of the exploring you can do will benefit you some net gains. I mean, for instance, the Citadel. There's always stuff to do on the Citadel. There's always something to find. Information about the Shadow Broker, information about the one, what's her name? The one who could effectively like see your future. And I forget her name.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about though.
Yeah, the one, and also exploring around and talking to the people and getting the people's like encouraging the people. Just be like, make sure that you help the Citadel. Make sure that you stay aware of the Reaper threat. And I wish that if you would have made all the right choices by the time you got to the third game and the assault began to take back Earth, if you had more than a set amount, it would be like a very hard fight. If you had like say 6,000, if you had 6,000 in terms of like total total ships at your call, then it would be a fight, but you could win if you did the right things. Set like 7,500 and like 9,000. If you had 10,000, it was a much easier battle, but you could still make a wrong choice and still lose everything.
What annoyed me is like I think Mass Effect 3 they like tried to like tie it to an app. I remember
they did
Galaxy Wars, whatever you had to get on your iPad.
Yeah, in which they did that to also pad the multiplayer.
Or or you could play the multiplayer, but you had to do like a fuck ton of the multiplayer just to get up to 100% on it or something.
But I actually didn't have to do that. By the time I got there, by the time they had, I actually didn't play the games fully until right before they released the Citadel DLC.
That's when I played it.
Really?
I remember them because I remember basically when I was playing through Mass Effect 3, I
didn't have to do that to get to like 10,000 ships because
I think it's just like points or whatever. Like I don't know if it's ships, but I know what you're talking about. But like I remember like it was kind of like it stopped at like 50% or something.
Yeah,
like, you just couldn't get, which I don't think it really affected anything in the story.
In the story, no, but it did affect like the endings. It affected the endings because. For Destroy, there's three different ways it can go. For Control, there's 3 different ways it can go. But for Synergy, there's really only one path.
Yeah.
There's really only one path that you can get, and the only way that you can get it is if you have a set amount above. I think if it's around 7,500 or more, then Synergy opens up for you. But Destroy is... I never did a Destroy one, and I did the Control one once, and I did Synergy, which... A lot of people say Synergy's the canon, but I really, really wish that there was a way that you could just like say to hell with it all, turn around, go back out, and get back into the fight and win.
I don't like the argument that people were making, like, oh, the Synergy means that the Reapers won, kind of thing. Like,
No,
I don't like that argument.
That's not. They didn't win.
Yeah, I did. It's just kind of like this is like the most optimistic kind of result.
It is. It is, and don't get me wrong. Synergy is a much better choice than Destroy, because Destroy, that means Edie, that means all the Geth, that means literally every single piece of machinery and like artificial humans out there and artificial beings out there effectively cease to exist. And that is not what I want.
And then you end up putting yourself in that problem where you're going to run into rebelling and artificial intelligence again.
Yeah. And then of course there's the Control one, which I liked how the Control one ended to certain degrees because you effectively became the full consciousness of the Reapers.
Yeah,
but at the same time, it was just like, oh, this kind of feels like
the
Reapers did win with this one.
Honestly, that was probably like the least enjoyment. Like the one where you could just like, say to the hologram kid or whatever, like, fuck it, we're gonna fight you to the death type thing, and you just walk away. That one, honestly, I feel like is better than the Control one.
Yeah,
I would rank it Control, the fight to the death, I guess, fight at the end, Destroy, and then Synergy. I did Synergy twice and Destroy once. But.
Yeah, Synergy with me, to me, it's not a choice that I 100% like, because I agree with Angry Joe. Angry Joe made this point, and he's played since the very beginning, and he's a huge Mass Effect fan. He said that I really wish that they would have taken the time to where you could 100% like get as many ships as you could, and if you got an X amount of ships, then you could win. Then you could actually beat the Reapers. You could break the cycle by showing that unity of the individuals coming together can win instead of synergy. Because synergy, as to him, and when I heard his argument, it actually made sense why I couldn't agree with really any of the endings as like one that I 100% that I actually liked. I would say when I first played it, I'd say I liked the synergy ending. I'd say about 70%. To me, it was like 70% the best choice. But when after hearing Angry Joe's assessment for it, I seriously questioned how I felt about it, and I thought about it, and I actually took it down to where it's actually I don't even like it as a 50% thing. I mean, all of the endings, save for the one where you can literally turn around and shoot at the little godchild thing.
Yeah.
I don't like any of those endings. I actually like that. I like it's the lesser evils that you choose, and for me, synergy is the lessest of the evils.
Least.
But still, I would have loved. Like, I agree with Joe that maintaining the individuality of each individual world and showing that once we're able to communicate with one another, once we are able to overcome these things that are in our way, these petty things that we think are so important but yet are not, and we come together as individuals for one common goal, there's nothing in the universe that can stop us. There's nothing in the universe that we can't do or conquer. And I would have loved if that could have been like the final message of it. But unfortunately, that's not what we got.
Yeah, it's one of those things too, with I'm so I don't have to worry about spoilers at this point, but as far as
it's a 10-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, with Shepard, dying no matter what at the end, basically. I mean, I know there's that thing where like if you do destroy, they kind of cut to the end where it's like he takes a breath or whatever. So
yeah, that.
I mean, it's interesting, but it's like it's still kind of ambiguous of like whether he survives or not.
Well, my whole thing with Mass Effect is that I just. If Shepard dies, that's okay, because to me it's poetic.
Yeah,
given everything that he brought together, a sacrificial figure like him would ensure that the galaxy would have peace and would have a unifying figure that they can all call back to and see. It's effectively the same peace that we had amongst each other for a while after Martin Luther King died, and now it seems as though even people who should be revering Martin Luther King now see him as a pariah. They see him as like a horrible person because he cheated on his wife. Now, don't get me wrong, that's a terrible offense, but given what he wanted in the long run, people to be actually able to talk to each other and be able to work things out through dialogue and through common ground, I mean, that's a beautiful thing. But yet people are cursing him nowadays, and that irritates me to no end.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that kind of goes back to the thing that nobody's perfect. Nobody, when you, and especially, looking back into history, like judging people. The thing with the Confederate statues, I get why people do not like them, and I personally get rid of them. I don't give a shit.
I don't think we should get rid of them. Instead, I think people need to remember what has happened in the past, not to dwell on it, but to remember it. And I think the statues, it really depends on individual actions.
Right.
See, the individual actions, I think, if people want to vote the statues out, okay. If the mass authority of the people want to vote it out versus like a fringe group who's just upset and don't want to see any Confederacy memorabilia or anything like that, then that's making a choice based upon emotion instead of logic. And which emotion is an important thing to have, but it's also important to have logic so you don't wind up making a mistake, because in the past there have been so many people who've made emotional decisions, so many people, and it's almost always wound up bad whenever you don't throw logic into the loop as well.
It's one of those things as well as that. Yeah, I like to look at things as objective as I can, and recognize that. 150 years ago, the way people thought is a completely different mindset than
by certain standards, it can be seen as barbaric.
And so, by today's standards, very much. And that's the problem, is that we're judging, certain specific people and the way they thought, the way they acted, the decisions they made, based on our standards today, and obviously
Yeah.
it's in obviously slavery is terrible no matter
No,
what
I mean,
age
no
you're
matter
in.
what.
But obviously it's at the same time you kind of also have to look at it with
Well, majority of the people who fought in the Civil War fought because of conscription. Like, there were a lot of Southerners there were more deserters in in the Confederate Army than by far in the Northern Army.
Have you guys watched the Oversimplified?
Oh, yeah.
Did you? Oh,
Yeah, I've seen that.
No, like for the Civil War.
Yeah.
Did you guys react to it?
No, we hadn't reacted to it.
Oh. Okay.
I've seen it because I honestly couldn't hold myself back anymore on not watching it. It's sort of like how I felt about The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But we are going to be reacting to that with Quinn.
Okay.
So that'll be fun. But overall, though, man, I can't help but just feel like the Civil War, how it happened, was a huge amount of different things that just kept coming up. And slavery was one of the things that the rich and the bourgeoisie in the South really wanted to keep, because that meant cheaper. That meant everything was cheaper. Everything was easier to manufacture and everything like that. The cotton industry, which in the South was massive. And you got to think, poor Caucasian Southern farmers, poor white Southern farmers, they didn't really have a reason to dislike slave, or to dislike the idea of slaves being free, outside of the fact that they were told that if slaves did in fact become free, then they would become a threat to the communities and stuff like that. And through the spreading of propaganda, that's what happened.
Well,
and that's why a lot of like poor Southern farmers had this idea. And of course, you had the religious nuts down south as well, preaching, separation of the tribes. We must keep black and white separate. To which, when you actually read the Bible and you read the sections that they were quoting, you see just how much they had to warp it to fit their sense of what was right and what was wrong.
Right.
And for every good old boy who considered themselves a good old Christian because they wanted to go out and hang people, it's like, are you even listening to yourself? What's one of the 10 Commandments straight out from the gate? You're forgetting the very foundation of what your religious beliefs are. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not kill. Is that not something that is written in the very bylaws of the very thing that you are practicing to be?
That's the problem with. What's up?
It translates to murder and certain.
The problem that you face in there too is when you're dealing with a society that has slavery and racism. Do you see the slaves as people?
But you got to think, though, less than 5% of the population in the South own slaves.
Well, I know. I mean,
and it's the rich down south who wanted to. If you want a good example of people rebelling against it and communities actually coming together, look at Newton Knight. Newton Knight and what he did in Pascagoula County and the Free State of Jones is hands down one of the like big pivotal points that shows that the South was not as unified on slavery as everyone thinks. You see, everyone wants to paint everyone whoever fought for the South or whoever died for the South or lived in the South at that time was just nothing but an arbitrary, just ignorant racist. But Newton Knight not only married a black woman, but had several kids with her, and those kids, like even his great-grandson, was arrested and was incarcerated because he wanted to marry a woman who was white, but yet because he had more than 1/8, I think it was around 1/8 or 1/16 black DNA. It was considered illegal in the county that he lived in, and he was actually imprisoned because of that. And when you look at a picture of his great grandson is as pale as snow and had red hair. But yet that's the thing. I mean, it's ignorance. Ignorance drives the populace forward because it means they don't have to think. When the populace does not have to think, and the people who in power are driving people forward, that is what causes these massive riots and massive demonstrations, because these people think, because they're being told this by people who are in control, that this is what's going to happen. Even when they pay the religious leaders to say all this shit too. And it's mass ignorance. It is pure mass ignorance. And when you see how it happened throughout history, how it happened in China with the overthrow of the
Republic.
Ming Dynasty, when it came with the fall of the Kuomintang, when it came with all of this stuff that happened throughout history, all these examples. It's just like when you have a religious oligarchy and a controlling power at the very top, instead of everyone having the freedom to determine what religion they want to be and determining what life they want to lead, instead of being told by a landowner or something like that, it creates serfdom pretty much, and like permanent serfdom. And none of these poor Southern farmers had their lives get any better after the war was over. And you go
to the Reconstruction. Yeah, Reconstruction was a lot harder, in part due to Lincoln obviously getting assassinated.
And Andrew Johnson pretty much just coming in and just like swooping in and like completely decimating the South.
Yeah.
And also Ulysses S. Grant as well didn't help things either.
Yeah, and then there's all kinds of misconceptions. I think they briefly touched on it in that oversimplified of the Civil War.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, in a lot of history, they like to paint that like the North was all totally against slavery, and you certainly had abolitionists that found it as morally evil, and all credit to them.
Frederick Douglass and the people who passed, and of course the advocates who did pass the law that did effectively make slavery illegal, the amendment that did make it illegal. If you go back and read the Emancipation Proclamation, it actually does not free slaves of the states who are still associated with the Union, but instead it frees all the slaves who are associated with the Confederacy.
No, but I think that got cleared up with the 13th through 15th Amendment.
Well, no, it did, but it was right after the war was over.
Yeah.
It was after the documents had been signed and the surrender had been signed at Appomattox.
Right. But I mean, but for a lot of people, it was more of just an economic issue, because when you're a low-skilled worker, competing with slavery and stuff, I mean, you're just not gonna the employers don't have any incentive to treat you better as an employee, because they can, if you're not doing a good job, they'll just get
exactly indentured servitude and slavery. I mean, that's the reason why it should be outlawed, and it still happens in the world today. I mean, there's still republics in Africa that and like dictatorships and dictatorships that still practice it. I mean, it's crazy to think about, and it's tribes that have effectively been taken over and have been turned into slaves, and they're being sold throughout the world. I mean, like the Middle East is full of them, and that's crazy to think about, that slavery still exists, and especially in places like Saudi Arabia, who are claiming, "Oh, we are leading the world forward on a new platform," and meanwhile they're assassinating these journalists who don't agree with them. I try to hold my peace with a lot of things, but fuck the Saudi government. Yeah, everything they've done has just outright destroyed any hope they have of like creating a peaceful society in the Middle East. What were you gonna say, Nick?
It's non-relevant, but this made me laugh earlier. This post came up on my feed. It's a tweet from Xbox. It's like, no matter what you call it, one thing that unites us all is the Xbox, and Happy National Video Games Day. And it shows the Switch with its X button, the PlayStation with its X controller, a keyboard with the X key. Then it's got a cell phone at the end with the X button being the X to close out a mobile games ad.
Oh! Good on you, Xbox. Good on you, Microsoft. Yeah, that's good marketing right there. That's grade A marketing. And you see, I'm hoping that means that to switch topics over to something a little more bright-sided. That's why I'm hoping that Xbox with the Series X will have a comeback, because they put out the specs of what their new machine, of what the Series X is capable of, and they've actually made it to where if you own the game on Xbox or Xbox for gaming, then you can actually cross-play it over to an Xbox Series X, and you'll actually get the best version, and you won't have to repay for the game.
Did you hear what CD Projekt Red said?
About
basically make upgrades free.
And that's awesome. I'm glad for that. I'm glad
because today, by the way, that Horizon Zero Dawn was posted on Amazon for PC.
Ooh. Well,
excited.
That's
You said,
interesting.
Mouse and keyboard.
you said Amazon or Steam?
Amazon.
Okay,
I'll tell you
so the Amazon Game Store. So
It had been
that's
rumored
interesting.
that Sony was going to start letting some of their first-party games be on PC as an experiment, and Horizon Zero Dawn was like first on the list.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Of course.
Because I want to play through that game really bad. I played parts of it, but I haven't
It's-
finished it.
it's a
and
fun
PC
game.
would be my preferred way to do that because I could aim a lot better with the mouse.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun game.
But, we also have one more meme.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Do that before we end.
Yeah, go ahead with it.
This is from Melvin 1185 with a $10 donation.
Oh, thank you, Melvin, so much.
Any
Appreciate
food
that.
service employees dream argument. Calling 3 pizza places at once.
Oh God. This is awesome. Yes.
Clearly chilling in his store with no customers at the moment.
What?
So,
part of that felt almost a little too staged.
no, I don't know. Well, of course it stays. They're setting each other up. But they're setting each other up. But even if that's a fake phone call, I can imagine that, that happening. Like, all of a sudden, thank you for calling Little Caesars. Thank you for calling Domino's. Thank you for calling Pizza Hut. Hello? Hi, is this for carryout or delivery? We don't do delivery. This is Little Caesars. No, sir, this is Domino's. It's like, yeah, no, because it's like, wait, no, this is Pizza Hut. Wait, who's talking? Like, it's like, what's your name, sir? I don't have to give you my fucking name.
But I mean, like, one of the guy was like, "Listen, fuckface."
Now, if it was a fake setup, they got me. They got me. That's still pretty damn funny.
I hope it was real. I hope the one guy was just chilling in his store with no customers so he could be like, listen here, fuckface.
It would make sense more in like, it would make sense in a Little Caesars because like there's no sit down or anything and that shit. You just go to the drive-through and you get pizza.
At Domino's, usually people aren't chilling in there for very long. I've been at Domino's and there's been like one guy working and I was the only guy picking something up before.
Pizza Hut's the only little place that like has
Usually
places to
if
sit
that
down.
ever happens too,
Well,
you go in
it's
and
'cause they
there's
have a
one guy
dine-in,
working and
usually.
you're the only person picking something up, they make your pizza bitching.
Yeah.
I've got the pizza there before I got on Facebook and I was like, give that man a raise. I was like, that was the best pizza I've ever had in my life.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was the last meme of the day, from what it seems, and we hope that you all have enjoyed this so far. This was quite the adventurous ramble. We talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about upcoming projects. We've also talked about Disney potentially shitting the bed and Bob Iger being out as CEO and Kathleen Kennedy probably being on her way out soon.
Touched on our political discourse.
Yes, touched on that as well. Also talked about Mass Effect, the potential future of video gaming and all that fun stuff. And also, we had some great memes shared with us along the way. And I guess until next time, everybody, signing off from Renegades Ramble, I'm Nate.
I'm Roan.
I'm Nick.
And we will see you all in the next one, everybody. Peace out.